This podcast is for a mature audience and may be viewed as inappropriate or insensitive to some. Listener discretion is advised. The intention is to share conversation of like and unlike-minded individuals as they try to be the best them they can be in a life full of challenges, searching for love, acceptance, and positivity. Call 669-241-1422 and share yourself or catch up with Sweet Baby J for an anonymous face-to-face interview. Feel free to call in with questions, stories, thoughts, or anything you would love to talk about and share. Nothing is off the table when talking sweet with Sweet Baby J at 669-241-1422.
Hello.
Good evening, good sir. Ladies and gents and ladies, once again, you are here talking sweet with Sweet Baby J. As always, it's a no-face, no-case scenario where we allow our guests to either share or not their identity. Young Stallion, would you like to share your identity or not?
No.
Plain and simple, no. I like that. Straight, you're a straight to the point kind of guy, and from all previous conversations, I have to say I admire that about you.
Thank you.
How old are you, young man, may I ask?
Oh, I'm about 75.
75. Wow. With those kind of years, that comes with a lot of wisdom, knowledge, and experience. Would you agree?
I agree.
Okay. Where are you from originally? Where were you born?
Born in Alabama.
Okay. And when did you leave Alabama? Are you still in Alabama?
No, I left there probably a little over 50 years ago.
How was Alabama way back in those days of 75 years ago? How was that growing up in Alabama?
It wasn't as good as it should have been. It was kind of tough down there. If you were minority, it was kind of tough. And keep in mind, back then, Alabama was completely segregated, and whites and blacks did not mix. So it was real tough. All the major advantages went to the white people, and the leftovers went to the black people.
So you literally grew up in segregation.
Absolutely. They did not integrate where I came from until 1969, and I left when I got drafted in 1963.
Oh, so you were in the military as well?
Well, for a short stint. I didn't stay. I got a medical and got out.
Oh, wow.
And I got out. Can I tell you why I got out?
Sure, you can tell me why you got out.
It had a lot to do with that segregation down there.
Do tell.
Because I found that when I got in the military and got to the induction center, it was segregated there too. Then as you move on, everything was still segregated because actually you went to all southern places when you left there. And then when they asked me to go to Vietnam, I said, oh no, I'm not going to Vietnam. I can't go over there. And I said, why should I go over there and fight people I don't know anything about, people who've never done anything to me? And they said, you are fighting to preserve the integrity of the United States. I said, all the things that I cannot do in this United States, not allowed to do simply because I am a black male. And you want me to go over there and preserve that? I said, no, I'm not going. So it took a long time and a pretty good fight, but I got out of it. And got out of it honorably, so I kept my integrity.
Oh, wow. That's a blessing right there. So you had issues.
Absolutely.
You had issues with fighting for a country that did not respect you as a whole person.
Oh, yeah. And it proved that I was right because many of my friends, my age and younger, did go. And they all either got killed in a few weeks or they came back with legs missing, arms missing, or strung out on some kind of crazy drug that nobody knew about. So I just said, the heck with that. I'm glad I didn't go.
Exactly. So how did they even segregate basic training back then? They want you to fight as one, fight the way that they train you to fight, but yet they treat you like a whole separate class in the military, huh?
Oh, yeah. Everything was segregated. Now, you might go to some kind of training things together, but when you came back from the training, went to the barracks, you went into separate ones because it was segregated.
What did you do in the military? What was your job?
I never got a job because I left before the training was over.
Oh, well, the reason why I asked that is because I wonder if they gave certain jobs to black soldiers and gave certain jobs to white soldiers. Why a lot of people come out with more lucrative careers when they leave the military than others?
Yeah, well, I never got to find that out because I didn't stay long enough. And I was determined not to because we knew and we had been told if we got through basic training, we were going straight to Vietnam. And I didn't want to go to Vietnam, so I wasn't going to go through training. And I didn't.
Clearly a decision that worked out for you.
Worked out fine.
Did you ever feel any kind of way, any kind of ill way that you did not complete or you did not go to Vietnam? Did you feel like you missed out on anything?
No, I felt very good, extremely good that I didn't go.
I feel you. And what did you work in for the remainder of your adult time after not going into completing your military career?
I did a lot of stuff. I actually worked in a federal job at a federal building, and I couldn't have done that had I not gotten an honorable discharge. But I worked as a communications technician in a federal facility for many years, then retired. Then I went to work for a city, which I will not name, but I went to work for a city as one of their police officers, and I retired from that too.
How was that? You grew up in segregation, and now you're a police officer expecting to be civil and understanding to the rights of everyone across the board. Is it possible that you look at everyone the same or that everyone has the same rights, even though that in your life you've been treated as if your rights didn't matter?
It was possible for me to look at it that way, but many of my fellow officers did not look at it that way. I was thankful to be there because on numerous occasions I happened to be handy and on the same call when some of the white officers mistreated and abused some of the black residents. And I was there to do something about it. And I did. I'd speak up and let them know that you may not like black people, but as long as I'm here, you will respect them.
So even with that being the case, I could only imagine you wore a target on your back.
Oh, yeah. It was always there. But there were some good guys that were on my side, but most of them were not. And I probably kept that target on my back throughout my career. And I still lived through it, and I still retired in one piece.
Very important. That's a God bless thing. But even having to do that, there should, the same way that soldiers get paid for PTSD, I believe that people in law enforcement that are subject to these types of ill actions towards them should also be getting some type of PTSD. That is crazy that you even had to deal with that.
Oh, yeah. We have to deal with a lot of stuff. And another thing I want to tell you, I know it's jumping backward for a minute, but when I was growing up under segregation, you couldn't be a police officer if you were black, where I was. In most southern states, you just couldn't be one because they wouldn't hire you. And if you went in and asked for an application, they'd tell you to leave, and if you didn't leave in a hurry, they'd throw you out physically. But eventually, they did start to hire black officers in several southern states. But strangely enough, a lot of people up north where I am now don't know this, but they would only allow those black officers to arrest black criminals. They couldn't arrest white people.
Wow. Ain't that crazy? Ain't that crazy? Were not allowed to arrest a white male or female, but...
No, I was. But okay. I'm saying that people that became black officers in the South, I didn't become one in the South. I became one in the North.
Okay.
But those who became black officers early in the South could not arrest white people. Even if they saw them robbing a bank, they couldn't arrest them. They had to call in a white man to arrest them.
Boy. So that is the true meaning of white privilege.
It is. It stayed that way for a long time in the South.
A sad reality. Such a sad reality, man. So
yeah, it was tough.
From where you were to see how things have come now with the political climate that I can't even say that we just got out of, because clearly it's still there. The smoke is still there.
Yeah.
And knowing that so many people support that mindset that you grew up in, and now they're trying to reverse the hands of time. How does that make you feel, seeing that or seeing what took place at the Capitol building? When you see this stuff, what do you think?
I don't just have to think. I pretty much know, had those people at that Capitol been black, you would have had a different outcome. First of all, they would have never allowed them even on the steps. They would have started actually shooting and killing them before they reached the steps. or beaten them half to death, they would not have allowed them up to the building and then to break windows and stuff and run down the hallway. They would have never done that had they been black, and I know that for a fact.
I think that's the way that most people feel, that there's a clear discrepancy on what would happen if the pigment of these insurrectionists would have been different.
Right, yes. And you see it in many cities here. Even now, they still treat a lot of the black suspects as criminals before they even know they've done anything wrong.
So, with that being said, what you're saying to me is that you don't even have to be a suspect. You're just treated differently just because of your. And this is something that you're seeing currently with as an officer.
I see this currently happening regularly. Yes.
You know, I say that as if there's some type of shock value that should be with it, but we clearly know that's not. We see it all day, every day. But yet, when people say Black Lives Matter, there are far too many that say that should not be said, that it should be all lives matter. When you hear Go ahead.
Go ahead.
When you hear people say Black Lives Matter and someone responds with support the blue, what do you think they're saying with that?
They're probably saying blue, of course, means uniformed officer. And they matter too. A lot of people agree that they matter. But there are still so many in that blue uniform who act like they're not an officer. They act like they're just the opposition to the black. And I see a lot of that going on here and other places around here. If you stop and look at some of the shootings and killings of black males, mostly males, there are some females too, but mostly black males. You see those shootings all over the country right now, but you don't see the same kind of shootings of any white males. They will arrest them and take them to jail if they commit a crime. But if you're black, you're more likely to get just shot and killed.
It's an unfortunate reality. And the thing is that I've had these conversations with far too many. I've seen so many documentaries. So it's always on the news. And the only thing that's apparent is that the more things change, the more they stay the same. And there are far too many politicians that don't get it.
That's right. And see, they write a lot of laws where they have an escape route for certain people.
Yes.
But certain people don't get that.
So
they're written that way.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So how do you feel? Because you came from the days of segregation, but with that voting, were you allowed to vote always in your lifetime, or?
When I was 18 years old, yes, I was allowed to vote. But had I been 18 a few years younger, I would not have been allowed to vote. No, but I was able to vote. But while I was in Alabama, I did not vote. And because nobody ever ran down there that I wanted to vote for.
Well, on top of that, I'm pretty sure even if you were to try to vote, they didn't make it easy.
Oh no, it would have been tough. They put you through the ringer where if a white person walked in and wanted to vote, they'd register them. If the white person was illiterate, they would do the registration papers for them and have them vote. But if you come in there, you could be a college graduate, and they still try to twist you up so you could not vote. Even when it became law that you had the right to vote.
So much has changed over the years. How was the school system back then, or even the plumbing system, or how was it even growing up in a house in Alabama 70 years ago? Yeah,
that's a good question, and I got a good answer for you. We went to a school that was a county-wide school. Everybody black in the county came to this school, and we had all black teachers and all black students. We were not allowed to attend anything at a white school. And at the same time, the white people could attend our basketball games and our football games at our school, but we couldn't attend theirs. And also, the first few years of school, we had outdoor toilets while the whites had indoor toilets. And later on, we did eventually get indoor toilets, but it was way late in my career.
When you say outdoor, you mean an outhouse? Like an outhouse or?
Outhouse. Yeah, we had outhouses.
Jeez.
Outhouses. No flushable toilets. It was just like that for most of my school time. Then eventually it switched over. I guess they were probably forced by somebody. I don't know who forced it, but I do know this. Like I said, we had all white teachers, but the school superintendent, I'm sorry, we had all black teachers. That's my mistake. We had all black teachers, but our superintendent was white. We never had a black superintendent, but we had all black teachers in an all black school. And I'll tell you something else. Remember, I said earlier when we were talking that they didn't integrate down there until 1969. Well, the first order they got from that governor was to destroy all black schools. They didn't say why, but we knew why, because they were going to be mixing whites and blacks, and they didn't want any white student to ever go into one of those school buildings. So they tore them all down.
So they tore down the black schools and decided to, that's when they said they'll integrate, but instead of sending white students to the black school.
That's when they had forced busing. They had forced busing by federal law. And they moved the black people to white schools. They would not allow white kids to go into the schools that we had always attended because they were not up to date. I mean, way behind.
Did you ever have any white friends back in those days?
No. I didn't even know any during my school year. I didn't know anybody.
Wow.
But after I got grown up, I met a lot of adult white people while working at different kinds of jobs.
How was that interacting with a whole race of people that you were just not ever having access to?
Well, it wasn't good. It wasn't good because we still were treated in that small town. We were still treated just like we were segregated. I mean, you had the right to go here and go there and stuff, but you were still treated as segregation because I worked with a white man at Ford Motors, and if we stopped to have coffee and donuts or breakfast, I could not go in there and eat my food even after this. I could not go in there and eat my food. I could order something, take it back out in the truck, sit out there and eat it, or sit outside and eat it, but I could not go into that restaurant and eat. And I'll tell you something. If you went to any restaurant in the city, and I don't know if all the cities were like that, but most of them were, you had to go to a window outside and order your food, and they would hand it to you through that window. And you hand the money in to them. You couldn't go in there to eat. And at the same time, all the cooks and cleanup people in that restaurant were black. They couldn't even eat in the restaurant. When it came lunchtime for them, they had to go out behind the restaurant to eat. So that's just the way it was.
I've always heard the sayings of Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X. Why would you want to support anyone that doesn't want you there?
Well, I didn't support him. I did not support him. And even today, I have to limit my support. I have to look into it real carefully, see what kind of person I'm dealing with before I will lend any support toward him. And that's not just in the South. That's everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, from what I know, that it's no surprise that I am no fan of President Trump. And one of the businesses that I frequented out in Florida, I found out we're making sizable donations to his campaign. I no longer shop there.
I wouldn't either. I wouldn't do that.
And I think everyone should do things like that. And truth be told, if you support President Trump and you know that this business is supporting him and you want to go support them, God bless you. You do it. But at the same time, I have the same right to not support a business because they support someone. I don't support people that don't support me.
I don't blame you. I feel the same way. I'll tell you something. This is within the last 2 years. I was traveling between Ohio and New York. And you go through Pennsylvania to do that. And I don't know if you already know about this or not, but it happened. And we stopped at a restaurant in Pennsylvania, and they didn't serve us in there. That was within the last 2-3 years.
Really?
They did. No, they didn't refuse to serve us. They just never would come to our table. We sat down at the table and waited and waited and waited. They never came. So we eventually got up and walked out.
Just what they wanted you to do.
Oh, yeah. We had no choice. We'd been there quite a while.
I tell you what, my one experience in Pittsburgh, I'll never forget. This was on a drive that I was taking. We walked into the restaurant, and I don't remember if I was getting something to eat or I needed to use the bathroom. But when I walked in, everybody was wearing Pittsburgh jerseys, and the way that everyone just stopped and just looked, I 100% was like, well, hello guys, what's going on? Because I don't get how I got so much attention so quick.
Yeah,
It was strange.
We did that same kind of stuff, and there's been other incidents since then, all in Pennsylvania, and not just with me, but with other people from this area, other black people from this area, and they had a tough time. If you ever break down or something like that in Pennsylvania, you can look forward to a long, long wait, unless you happen to be blocking the interstate or something, and they'll tow you away. Other than that, they won't come out to fix your car.
The crazy part is a lot of people with these same mindsets would consider themselves to be God-fearing people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and they'll say it to your face. They will say it right to your face. I don't understand that.
It will never make sense to me, but I would love to talk with somebody that they feel that it makes sense to them to be a God-fearing person, and yet you look down on a fellow human being simply because they have a different complexion.
Yeah, that's bad news. I don't know if I ever said this, but when I was a younger man and still high school age, I used to play baseball. So we had to go to Mississippi to play a championship game against our team from Alabama and Mississippi. We got down in Mississippi, and we were a few hours before the game, so we were walking around trying to find people. We didn't see anybody black. We were looking for black people. We couldn't find it. So I walked up to a man who was a white man, and he had a knife in his hand, whittling on a stick. And I asked him, I said, "Excuse me, sir, can you tell me where all the black folks hang out around here?" He looked me right in the eye and said, "Son, I'll tell you, the last one I seen was hanging in that there tree." Wow. That's what he said. We got back on the bus and left. We didn't even play the game.
You didn't even play the game?
No, we left.
Wow.
But that's exactly what he said. And we were already scared of Mississippi, all the stories we had heard over the years, but we didn't know they were true or not. But that confirmed it for us, and we left.
Game over.
Game over, even unplayed. So we forfeited. And they never went there after that.
Have you ever actually seen a person hung?
No, not personally. No.
Thank God.
But I know they did it, because I do remember, I didn't see it, but my parents did, because they used to hang a black man on the border of Mississippi and Alabama. They had a sign hanging on it, "Don't get caught in here after dark. Same thing could happen to you."
Wow. And these are stories that your parents told you, or you just heard your parents talking about it?
No, they told us. They told us. We knew it was happening, but I never did see it personally, of course. I didn't go to Mississippi as a child, except for that one game time. I stayed away from Mississippi because I was afraid of it. And we knew where we stood. I mean, in a town with probably 4,000, 5,000 people all together, the whole town, and all the white people live on one part of the town, all the black people live on the other part of the town. You get the message real fast. And as we were growing up, not only couldn't we go into restaurants, but we couldn't go into public swimming pools. We couldn't go into pool rooms, bowling alleys. We were not allowed in any of those places. If you went in there, they would call the police and they'd throw you out. So we knew better than to go, and we didn't go. So that's why a lot of people at my age then grew up not knowing how to swim, because they were not allowed to swim. And the ones who did learn, like me, we just jumped in the river or a lake or something and swam that way. That's how we learned.
So they really did, back in those days, segregate to make sure you knew your place and where you didn't belong.
That's right.
And at the same time, they still do that.
Yeah, they didn't hesitate to tell you. I remember when I was telling you I was working at that Ford place.
Mm-hmm.
While I was working there, Martin Luther King came down through Alabama. And my boss was standing talking to some of his white employees about that visit. And he was on the side of the white people, of course. and he said some nasty stuff about him. He saw me standing there because I was working, and he just ignored me like I wasn't even there. Just kept on doing the same kind of talking. Nasty stuff.
Well, this stuff has continued. I was at one of my accounts for a previous job I had in the medical field, so I'm working with what are considered educated people because they've gotten their degrees and they're working. And I hear a nurse saying right after Super Bowl Sunday, why don't we make the Monday after Super Bowl a holiday so that people could get rest? Why don't we get rid of one of those stupid holidays like Martin Luther King Day?
Yeah, crazy as it sounds. Some legislator here tried to get a law passed recently that would stop Black February as being Black History Month. Said if he got it passed, first thing they were going to do was abolish Black History Month.
How do you even try that in 2021?
I don't know. Well, it didn't happen, but that's what he's trying. And they're trying a lot of stuff. They're doing everything they can.
But this is the thing. In this day and age, to even try something like that, there is no way that person should ever be allowed to even be reelected or even run. You are not for the people.
That's right.
Because for the people doesn't mean for some and not for others. For the people,
that's right,
means for all.
Let me tell you something I saw in the paper just this week. It was last week now, because this week just started today. Mm-hmm. Just saw it in the paper. There's a college here, and they said they were going to put on a show for Black History Month at the end of the month, and they were going to honor several Black musicians and entertainers. They listed all their names. So they had this big auditorium where they were going to hold this thing. And they've got to play live music played by Black people in honor of these Black musicians. Turns out, when people showed up for the show, they talked about these Black people. But there was no Black person performing. They had all white people performing. And all the entertainers, the play people, they had a live play. They were all white. And believe it or not, that fight's going on now because people blew up.
Wow.
And the college is full of Black people, very qualified Black people. But they would not put any Black people on there. Now they apologize and said they know it shouldn't have been that way and they're sorry.
Yeah.
But people don't want to hear that.
And as they shouldn't. As they shouldn't. We have come too far in society to even allow that type of buffoonery.
Right.
Because it's buffoonery.
But it's going to continue. It's going to continue as long as you can keep somebody in there like the president we just got rid of. You can keep somebody in high offices like him that think like he did. This is going to continue.
Unfortunate realities.
Right. And they don't have to be president. All they have to do is have a position of authority. Yeah,
it doesn't have to be president. It could be a commissioner, a warden. Yep. It could be principal in a school, attorney general. Any person that is in a position of power that holds these type of mindsets should be terminated and not allowed to carry a position of power ever again.
That's right.
I mean, let's think about it. Let's think about it. When someone goes to jail for whatever crime, they try to take your rights to vote, your rights to have a decent life. But yet when someone displays these incredibly negative and unprogressive mindsets, they're allowed to move on with their life. Why?
Mm-hmm. There's no reason for it. There's no excuse for it. It's just that the people in charge, the people who are supposed to be prosecuting them and doing these things to them, punishing them, think the way they do. So they won't punish them. That's what the problem is. They just won't punish them. Like, same thing with these
police officers,
white officers shooting a whole bunch of Black people. If those people, from the very beginning, when they're found guilty of doing something illegal, they should have been prosecuted, but they were not. It's only recently that you see anybody white go to jail for shooting somebody Black.
In the back.
In the front, too. If you're shooting illegally, if they're unarmed or standing there or running away from you, whichever, you shouldn't shoot them. And I'll tell you something else that we have mentioned about stuff like that. When I was growing up, there was a state down there, I can mention that, state of Tennessee, at that time, had a law on the book It was called the 1129 law. You may never heard of that, but it's called the 1129 law. And all it meant was if a black person killed another black person, the maximum penalty, if any penalty, the maximum penalty was 11 months and 29 days. But if you killed a white person, it was forever. You stayed in jail if you ever got to jail. People couldn't kill white.
I've heard so many say, you better not, if you kill somebody, it better not be a white person because you're going away for the rest of your life. But I did not know that it was an actual rule,
That was a law.
Which is why you probably hear so much about quote unquote black on black crime.
Right. Yeah, you do. And I never just
thought about that.
So flagrant. It's unbelievable that they passed laws like that, but they did have them.
Wow.
And of course, back then too, you better not be caught with a white woman and be black.
Have you ever been with a white woman?
Pardon?
Have you ever been with a white woman?
Not there. Here, yes.
Oh, okay. It ain't no different.
Yes. No different, and I don't do it anymore either.
No.
That's been many, many, many years.
Yeah, it ain't no different. But just the fact that the white woman may have been seen as pure, and you better not touch it, but yet they would so easily touch the black woman.
Oh yeah, they rape black slaves and stuff all the time, and nothing was ever done about it. And nothing will be done about it. It's too late now for that. But stuff like that still goes on, and they rarely get the punishment they deserve. Getting back to your ex-president, right now, you see how much they did to Bill Cosby for what he did to those women. But they didn't do anything to Trump. And he did just as bad, if not worse.
Yeah.
But he was never punished.
Young man, so much years of wisdom, knowledge, pain, and perseverance.
Yes, a lot of that, a lot of pain.
But
I've learned to live with it.
That's all we can
I've
do.
learned to live.
Well, I'm going to say thank you for coming out on Talkin Sweet with Sweet Baby J. As always, a no-face, no-case scenario. I'm very sure we can do it again. If you ever have anything you want to talk about, any topics, nothing's off the table, I would love to talk about anything with you.
Okay, I'll remember that.
There you go.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Have a great one.
Have a good night.
That's about it.